we're making tons of dough to buy a few gallons of gas, or a doodad for the radio, or sometimes enough to buy an HT. So that's good. Okay, did you just start the recording also?
Yeah, the recording started.
Okay, so I'm going to, just before you do, I'm going to introduce Phil here, K6FUZ. This is Phil. And before we have him speak, we're going to play a recording from the new net in February something, whenever that was. So I happen to be listening. And well, let's just do this. Let's just play it, Phil, and then we'll go from there. So fire away. I'm turning off my fire away on.
Anybody else who'd like to join us for the SNARS New Net today is welcome to come on in. Well, we're having a good time so far. Come on in. We'd love to talk to you.
Hi, this is K6FUZ 06 Foxtrot Uniform Zulu.
The station that was checking in before, you were a little scratchy. Unfortunately, I was having a hard time reading you. Could you come again and I'll get you? I know I can get you in there if I try real hard.
Hi, this is K6FUZ 06 Foxtrot Uniform Zulu. Over.
All right, K6. I got K6F and I missed the last part again. Help me out. You're light on, and then you've got this sort of a tone in there that's coming in with you, the sort of a waving tone. So let's do it again. I did it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I got K6F, and then it's a Foxtrot. So what's the last part?
Kilo 6 Foxtrot Uniform Zulu. How now?
Hey, I did it that time, Phil. I got you in the blog. K6FUZ, that's Phil. I should have known. I know that call sign, darn it. So let's start. Let's start with you, Phil. How you doing? Got a little, sort of like some kind of a sound in your signal today. But come on in and let's share some time together if you've got time.
I do, and the sound you hear in the background and the sort of waviness in my voice maybe is due to the main rotor blade vibration. I'm 8,300 about, looks like about 5 northwest of Truckee, en route in a helicopter going home.
Oh, awesome. You made my day, Phil. I've got to put you in my darn personal logbook. I've never had I had one air contact, but I'm going to put you in. That is so cool. So tell me about your flight. Tell me about your helicopter, if you don't mind.
It's an old ship. She's a 1973 Bell 206 P2 Jet Ranger. She's had an illustrious career flying in all kinds of movies and other things. And we're just taking her out of maintenance now, and this is the first flight out of maintenance, hauling it back to base. Otherwise, maintenance was down near Groveland, and I'm headed to near Beckworth. That's about it from here. It's quiet, we like our flights to be uneventful, boring.
Oh, you're right about that, and you picked a great day for flying. It seems like the air is beautiful. It seems like it's pretty darn calm up there. And, well, I wish you a safe flight. Anything else you want to add?
It's a nice day, all right. There's not much for overcast, but it's a hazy high, looks like a hazy high ceiling, but I can't tell if it actually is covering the whole thing because it's too far up there. And I'm passing the reservoirs, like by Dog Valley, like Boca and so forth, and just going to be heading up the highway here. They call it the old school I-follow roads, as it were. And Sierra Valley's in the distance. I can see it already, so I'll just cut over there, and in about 10 minutes or so I'll have to check out, because I'll be in the descent phase, so to speak, and probably out of radio range there. But that's it from here. I wish everybody good day off here on the net. Back over to net control. Kilo 6 Foxtrot Uniform Zulu.
Well, Roger, Roger, K6FUZ. That was such a cool contact. I'm glad we both had a little bit of patience for one another as I was getting your call sign. I'm looking on the ADSB.
Okay, well, that was amazing. What happened was that day I was listening to, and Don says, "No, I'm hearing this tone," and I'm hearing, I'm thinking, I think he's in a helicopter. So, sure enough, you heard the rest of it. So I got his call sign. I looked it up on QRZ. I sent him an email and said, "Hey, that was very cool." Lo and behold, I'm thinking about 5 weeks later, I'm looking for somebody to talk at the SNARS thing, SNARS meeting, and then he happens to check in, and I go, "Okay, I ask him," and he says yes. And so this is what we did. Now, how did we get the audio? Well, SNARS has a Broadcastify account, which that allows us to hear the new net and other things through the radio. So there's an archive. I pulled the file down, edited that portion. So here's Phil, K6FUZ in person from North Sparks, DX from Sparks in person to show you some cool pictures and share about aeronautical. Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Barry. Can you make that kind of go full screen? Will that go a little larger? Okay. If anybody wants the link to this, yeah, and so it's all available online. The picture's a little hard to see because the screen's a little small. And it's hard to compete with the milkshakes and the cheeseburgers, but that is where the ship was coming from. And the guy standing in the low right, that's Rich, who works on the helicopter with me. So I fly to, that's literally landing in front of his house in Pine Mountain Lake Airport, Groveland, and he's going like this, telling me where to park. So I go to his house and we work on the thing, and then we turn around and come back. And it turns out when we went to maintenance this time, we stuck a ham radio in the thing. And all of our aircraft have the same 2 meter, 70 centimeter radio in there. And it's a lot of fun. And when Barry caught me on the noon net, he said, "Hey, can you talk about that?" And I go, "Yeah, well, it's a lot of fun. Who doesn't want to talk about ham radio and flying around, right?" And there's a lot of crossover between hams and pilots. So a lot of hams are pilots, a lot of pilots are hams. And when they ask you, "Where are you?" right, or "What's that noise in the background?" and you have to explain them. Actually, the noise we were hearing, that whine, that like that is actually the turbine motor. So I was wrong. It wasn't the rotor blade that everyone's hearing. You can't really hear the rotor. You would hear that, but you didn't hear kind of that. I was mistaken when I said that on the air. What I should have said is what you're really hearing is the whine of the turbine motor, which goes like that, okay? And the other sound you would normally hear is like the tail rotor, which goes like that, but you didn't hear that either. So the blades you didn't really hear, but you hear the giant vacuum cleaner above you. Go ahead and next page. If you want to have more fun than a barrel of monkeys, you fly around and talk on the ham radio. We have 3 aircraft. The little one at the top is a Cessna 152. That's the helicopter in the middle. And there's a Beechcraft Bonanza at the bottom. And all of them have radio. And go ahead and go to the next one. 3 ham radio equipped aircraft. That's what it says. And this is the one that I got caught flying. That's a 1973 Bell 206 B2 Jet Ranger. It was used for every application you can imagine. It's been in about a handful of movies. If you actually look up the tail number, you can find pictures of it having flown for radio stations, news stations. The tail number appears in various movies. Okay, so when we got it, it wasn't flying. It was one of these projects. It's like buying an antique anything. Oh, you buy an antique radio with tubes in it, you fix it up, right? Only difference with aircraft is you buy an antique aircraft, you never quite ever get done restoring the thing. Go ahead to the next one. Go ahead, next slide. That's the 152. It's a Cessna 152 Commuter 2. to sort of put some numbers to it, you can loiter for 4 to 5 gallons of fuel an hour. Okay. So with, well, it's $5 to $6 a gallon times $4 to $5. So even if it's $6 times 5, that's $30 an hour. You can loiter in a plane like this at 10,000 feet. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. That's a Beechcraft Bonanza. You'll see that in there too. Go ahead and the next one. Okay, so why put a ham radio in? Probably preaching to the choir here, but why put a ham radio in? There's a couple of good reasons why. If you're on a really long trip, like it took me 13 hours across the country one time, and I flew from Princeton, New Jersey to Beckley, California, which is just the other side of Reno. It's just the north and west of Reno here, about 50 miles. And that was a long trip, and nice to be able to talk to people. And, you know, you meet hams from all across the country, literally. And you're talking like Simplex on 4652, which is kind of neat. And they always ask you, hey, where are you? Kind of love you, right? and that makes for fun conversation. Even on short trips to places like LA, Vegas, you know, 1 to 4 hours, Idaho. Okay, it's fun to have. I made a trip to Idaho last year, and of course, half the friends were half or more of the friends were hams, right? Ex-airline pilot guys and stuff. And of course, you know, you're 100 miles away talking to their local repeater, which is kind of fun. And of course, the SNARS new net, which is how I ended up here. I got netted. And so lots of pilots are hams. It's kind of a special operating environment. You know, you're like 10,000 feet and above. I say 17.5 because when you get to 18, you got to go IFR, and then you're kind of busy talking to air traffic control and all that stuff. And us little piston powered guys, you know, we don't get up that high unless you're turbocharged, and, you know, generally you don't have to go that high. So, but you're above most terrain. So you have a huge advantage. I mean, you can go 200 miles without any problem. There's monitoring. There's a lot to monitor. It's fun to monitor. And it's really nice to have an air to ground capability. Like if you got to meet up with somebody, you're trying to track somebody in a car, or you're looking to find somebody, or you're looking to rescue somebody, or you got to pick up somebody off a mountainside in the middle of the night. It helps to have non-airband radios, because the ground people never have, almost never, unless you're in an airport environment, have an airband radio. Okay, now weirdos like me will carry an airband handy talkie. Why? Because if we're stuck somewhere and we're forced down, we can talk to airplanes up there, and that can maybe save our butts, right? So go ahead and go to the next one. This is the radio. You probably have all seen this, but this is your conventional ham radio. We chose this one for any number of reasons, but basically we stuck the same radio in all the aircraft, so you can pull it out and put it in, and you're not having to deal with supporting multiple units. Okay, let's go to the next one. And so here's where we stuck it. This is part of the reason we chose that radio is you can separate the head from the body. So in this particular case, this is the one installation where we stuck the body in the trunk and the head in the front. And the head's kind of like stick on, and the body is, you know, your conventional sort of extra large sandwich size ham sandwich. Well, the thing is actually good for 72, 6, and 10, but the antenna is really only set up for 2. It's, as you know, a compromise for 70. You can receive 6 and 10 on it, but it's like, you know, a CB radio with a pull-out whip antenna. It's kind of sort of, you know what I mean? It's not really. So you theoretically could work those bands if you were like line of sight with somebody, but it's on a practical basis, you kind of don't really do it. So, and most of the time, you're not going to be sitting there like tuning around like crazy. You're going to be on probably 4652. So theoretically, you could get by with like a, you know, a little 5-channel radio with crystals in it, but nobody does that anymore these days. So go ahead and go to the next one. So there's where it's stuck. The strap is not related. Go ahead and go to the next one. And there it is. Go ahead and go to the next one. So all of the aircraft, we decided to use an NMO mount. That allows for interchangeability. If for some reason you break an antenna, you can replace it. But these antennas never break because they're incredibly strong and durable, and they don't fall off either if you tighten them appropriately. So they all have the same mount. It's all on the bottom. It's all a little quarter wave width. Go ahead and go to the next one. And so this is what the pilot sees. The pilot sees the top piece is an audio panel that controls where your receive audio and your transmit audio and your push to talk goes. The middle section, this is in the helicopter. The middle section is 2 airband radios, which used to talk to air traffic control and other airplanes and helicopters. And the next thing down is called a transponder. That is basically like packet radio for airplanes. It says, here I am, where I am, which way I'm going, who I am. And it just broadcasts that constantly. And it also receives it from everyone else. In fact, if you look at kind of how these are all derived, they're very much like sort of prepackaged applications with on top of packet radio. And then the ham is on the bottom, the ham mic is on the left. This is the only installation where we kept the ham mic. And that was because we anticipated that we might have another operator on the other side of the pilot. In this particular case, the pilot sits on the right and the co-pilot sits on the, or operator sits on the left. So if we were to go with another ham, he'd have the full mic capacity. The only disadvantage is it's not piped in. It's not piped in through the mouth microphone of the headset. You have to pick up the mic separately. And I've had people ask me, how do you do that in a helicopter? Because your hands and feet are like all stuck together, right? And so to answer that question, because I know it'll come up, there's a thing called friction, and you can friction all your controls so like they don't move too easily. And so you friction the collective one, which goes up and down like this. You friction that on, you can reach over and go, oh, pick up the microphone, right? So that's what I was doing. I was frictioned on with the power, and you just kind of, you're going along, right? And if you need a little more power, you kind of pull up on it. It's got a little friction on it. You can still operate the control. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this is what the panel looks like for audio. Actually, these would be kind of fun if you had like a lot of radios in your shack and you were in a headset, or you're in a field environment where it's noisy and you're wearing a headset. This would actually be kind of cool because it would allow you to wire all your radios together, and then you could select which ones you wanted to listen to. So the knob on the bottom selects mic and audio in and audio out, and push to talk. And the switches on the top select what you're just going to listen to. So you can talk on one, and then you could talk on air VHF1 and listen on ham, or you can dial over to ham and still be listening on one or all of the air radios, which is kind of a neat idea. Only, you probably wouldn't want to pay for aviation equipment in a ham application, but you could make this yourself. Okay, we go to the next one. This is what it looks like in the Bonanza. You can see on the right, there's some navigation equipment. We ripped all the extra junk out of the airplanes because you don't really need all the extra junk, and super simplified it down. But interestingly enough, the top box is both a VHF radio, airband VHF radio. The third box down, which has like a little green panel on it, that is a airband radio that can also monitor its standby. And then the ham can listen to airband as well. So you can monitor 4 frequencies at once if you choose to do so, which most people will not do. Or you can monitor 3 airband things and talk on the ham radio, or you can ignore the airband things and just talk on the ham radio. Which, okay, so a lot of guys talk to air traffic control all the time, and that gets kind of busy and you don't want to miss calls. So you kind of pay attention to that and you're not talking on the ham radio. But there's a lot of nothing out there, okay? There's a lot of airspace where you don't have to talk to anybody, and nobody wants to talk to you. I mean, like I flew down to Los Angeles Basin in a helicopter one time, more than one time, and I learned very quickly, air traffic control does not want to talk to you. Blah, 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 you're a helicopter. Yeah, talk to the next control, literally. Talk to the next controller. You're a helicopter. We don't want to handle you. Stay low and slow and out of our way, okay? So I never talk to them anymore. Go to the next one. You just learn, and you call up the other guys. You go, hey, what's with this? And they go, yeah, they don't want to talk to you. Just follow the roads. You're fine.
You ever call on the wrong radio, like your traffic control?
Okay, that's a good question. Do you ever talk on the wrong radio? And the answer is, if you have not talked on the wrong radio, you haven't used a radio, okay? one of my early flight instructors he was Army aviation. If you know anything about these guys, they're like strict, strict, strict. Okay. And he was like, military, he has no hair. I mean, you look at me and go like, hey man, get a haircut, get a job. Okay. And I actually had no hair at the time. I was like DI cut. Okay. But he was a great instructor. And one time I missed a call. I talked on the wrong radio and he yells at me. He goes, always hiss, right? And what he meant by that is you pull the knob out on the aviation radio that we had at the time and it hisses, okay? So that tells you, like by listening, if you're on the right radio, okay? And he goes, always hiss, right? So I remember that and I tell my students, always hiss. I don't yell at them though, but so yeah, yes. And the short answer is yes.
I love the answer. If
Yeah.
You haven't done it.
Right. If you haven't done, you have to use the radio. So always hiss. And you hear airliners making this mistake. Like they'll get a handoff from NorCal to center, or they'll get a handoff between NorCal sectors or something like that. And you'll hear like guys flying, Citation jets as professionals, right? Operating 135 or 91, right? And these guys, they'll miss calls. So everybody's done it. And then somebody gets on and goes, wrong frequency. We've never done any of that. It's hams. Okay, we'll go look at the next one. Oh, so this is the Bonanza panel up close. The antenna on the bottom. Go ahead and go to the next one. The antenna on the bottom. We had to bend it. Okay, so the helicopter has about this much clearance between its trunk and the ground for the antenna length, and the Bonanza doesn't quite have that much clearance. It turns out if you come into land like this, you'll scrape the antenna. So we scraped the tip off the antenna, kind of trimmed it, resonated a little bit better. And so we bent it, right? So it doesn't go long. You can hear when you land. Oh, okay. It's kind of like those old school curb feelers, right? This is like a runway feeler. Okay, next one, go ahead.
You know when to flare.
Yeah, exactly. You're flared enough. Oh, okay, hold it right there. This is in the 152. You can see the 152 is completely stripped out. We have a transponder, we have the one radio audio panel, and we got the ham, right? The same ham with a little DB9 interface to it. You can pluck it out, swap it to the other one, right? Something's not working. Oh yeah, swap them. Okay, move. It didn't move. It's in the airplane. Go ahead. Next one. And antenna on the bottom, also vent. Next one. Okay, so we picked this radio because it has all the bands. The buttons on this you can pre-configure. So there's like A, B, C on the left, D, E, F on the right. So you want to talk amateur. A is for amateur. You press, there's no H. You press A, right? And you can preload like 4652 and like P-Vine, right? So you punch A, and there you are. So I had it set and flying along like this, ready to go, man, it's a new net, right? So I checked in and he got me. Pre-configuration, really useful when your hands are full, or if you're just lazy like me. It has all the interface capability for microphone, panel push to talk, mic high, and so forth. It's easy to program. There's a little USB cable that goes in the back. You can program it with chirp. So it's really easy to use. The interfacing to it has basically 3 holes. You stick the right thing in the right hole, you're good to go. So you can take, without having to take the radio apart, you can interface to it. And then it can be split up. So if you want to split it up, you don't want to stick it all in the front because you don't have the room or whatever, you can do that. And it can monitor a lot of things, including airband. So it's really handy to have airband monitoring capability. Okay, we'll go to the next one. No, they're less than 200. You can get them, like, I've got them as low as I think 170, something like that. Yeah, they're like 40, I haven't put a bird scope on them, but I mean, yeah, basically. And the thing is, there's like a low, medium high, and high, right? It's kind of like steak, right? Well done, and And basically, I mean, you got food here. How can you not be thinking about that? I'm gonna have to compete with this. So it's usually most of the time you'll be surprised how far you can go on like 1 to 5 watts, or you're yeah when you're up there, because all your aviation radios, even in your airliners, they're like 5 and 10 watt radios. They're not real powerful radios, but you can talk 150, 200 miles on them, and they're very effective. Like, and then there's weird propagation that occurs for some reason. Like around here, you climb up to 10,000 feet, you'll always hear Willits, California. Why? I mean, it's just a hole, right? And I've been in mountain situations out here where I've talked to guys as they've been driving along in a mobile, and I'm like, there's no way I should be hearing this guy and talking to him. But it's like some kind of, I don't know, must go through the minerals or something, or the, the iron ore layers, and it's kind of like a in mountain coax or something going in there. But no, there's weird things that happen out in the mountains. Everyone here knows this, right? So, I mean, again, not telling you anything you don't know. We stuck a BNC on the end of the radio. Now, this 259s are a pain in the neck, and they always come loose, and everything in aviation shakes, right? So you tighten the snot out of that PL259, then you can't get it off, right? So you put an adapter on there that's BNC. And since it's only like maximum of 50 watts, you can get away with it. And you stick the BNC on the end, and it's spring loaded, and it holds itself in there so it doesn't shake off. Everything, if you ever install one of these in an airplane, everything in airplane shakes, everything in helicopter shakes, and it all falls apart. So you like things that are spring loaded. Look at all the fasteners in aviation. A lot of them are spring loaded. A lot of them have mechanical means of staying together under vibration. We went with the simple quarter wave. Keep it simple, nothing fancy. And then you don't have to worry about things like aerodynamic flutter. Of course, when you're so low and so slow, they don't even consider you as flying in a helicopter. And that's why, when you're learning to fly, you're called a maggot, because you're not a fly yet. But after you learn to fly, helicopter pilots are still called rotor maggots. Why? Because the airplane guys consider the helicopter guys to be flying so low and so slow, you're not really flying. So you're called a rotor maggot. Anyhow, so you at our speeds, you don't really have to worry about it. But maybe on some, in the airplanes when you're really getting going, like the faster airplane, you might get some flutter. So you avoid any of that weird aerodynamic interaction. Non-oscillating can be bent, tuned for 2 meters, and kind of, to be perfectly blunt, choices are limited. And you don't want to use an aviation band because they're perfectly tuned for the aviation band, which is like 118 to 136, 137. The 136 to 137 is kind of loosey-goosey because, yeah, it's authorized, but nobody ever uses it. Okay, go ahead, and we'll go to the next one. You're going to need a converter. All these aircraft are 28 volts. Some aircraft are 12, but they're really 14. And the reason for that is what they do is they goose around with the specific gravity, the electrolyte in the batteries, and they up that because they're trying to cram more energy into a smaller battery to make the battery lighter so that you can still crank the engine over. And one of the things you always worry about in aircraft is not having enough juice in the battery to crank the engine, so you end up stranded somewhere, which sucks. And that kind of is antithetical to aviation. So you need a power converter, and they're cheap. In the helicopter, it's a 1973 helicopter. We found this big old thing in there, and we unearthed it. It was being completely unused, but it was still working and alive. And we're like, wow, an antique, we'll use it. So we wired it into that, and we had to pull out. I mean, we were literally pulling out cases of old dead wire out of this thing, and we found this thing in there. It was like mummified, but still working. So we used it. You got to be a little bit careful about interference with aviation equipment. If you got the power cranked up all the way, you can actually, and I've seen it, kind of block out other signals at certain frequencies, and you can birdie things and stuff like that. But if you're the pilot, you're allowed to do it. And if you're a ham, you're supposed to know what you're doing. So the combination of those two things results in the net of all things in aviation, it's on you, which it always is. It's really nice to have an autopilot. Okay. You're on a 13-hour flight. You want an autopilot. You want to talk on the ham radio? You want an autopilot. So what I usually do is, like, if I'm in an airplane, I'll climb up to cruise altitude, flick on the autopilot, start listening, right? Sometimes you hear guys and they're already talking, right? And there'll be a little gap and you just go, they'll be done talking and you put out your call sign. And then they'll call you back, right? And you start talking and they go, "Where are you?" Right? You go, you look at your map. Let's see, I'm 10,000 feet over Sacramento. And they're like, "What?" or they're like, what was it? Don was on the net. I hear this noise in the background. Yeah, because you always get that. What's that noise in the background? It doesn't sound like alternator whine. So it's nice to have an autopilot, and I've had some really good flights. I write the logging. I just write in my flight log. My flight log is just a notebook. It's nothing fancy. A lot of guys use like a pilot log and stuff. I just use a spiral notebook and I just scribble stuff in there like as I go along. It's kind of like an all-purpose log. And then there's working with the avionics techs and the mechanics. It helps if you know their trade. Hello? Because they're not going to know your trade. Okay, so if you tell them, okay, pin out to a DB9 like this and these signals, they can do that. But if you tell them, well, I want to go into the ham radio, they're going to be like, huh, ham radio? What's that? Now, some of them are hams, okay? But be that as it may. Go to the next one. One of the things that's really important is, this is an old adage from aviation. Some of your pilots probably know about this: aviate, navigate, communicate. So you got to pay attention to flying. Otherwise, there are mountains around here and there's other aircraft. You can whack into things. So you really got to be able to look out and keep a lookout what's going on, and kind of know where you're at. And then you're free to ham. And basically in a flight, most flights are, you take off, you climb, you cruise, you descend, and you land. And I tell my students, airplanes only do 5 things, right? Those are the 5 things. If you know how to do those 5 things, you can fly, because you're only going from airport to airport. Not true for helicopters. That's a little bit different. But when you get into the cruise phase of flight, you're not doing a lot of aviating or navigating because the autopilot's flying and you kind of know where you're going, right? And you can tell the machine, hey, go follow this navigation line, right? And it follows it, right? So sometimes I take a nap, but if I'm not napping, I'll talk on the radio. The radio sometimes helps me to keep from having a nap. I usually use 4652. And if it turns into like a thing where I want to chew the rag with somebody else, I use another simplex frequency. You can go up or down. And one of the things you want to be careful with if you're dialing into repeaters, you don't have this problem with the SNARS linked system because it doesn't really have any competition on frequency, but you can key multiple repeaters. And so you'll key up and you'll hear like repeaters either heterodyne over each other, or you hear them click off at different times. So you kind of got to be aware of that. I don't work a lot of repeaters when I'm in the air that much, unless I know that, I'm going to be doing that. Mostly it's almost always 4652. So what's in a QSO? The typical ham radio things. Who are you? Where are you? What are you doing? What are you operating? You're a what? Oh, I've had guys. Oh, I see you on FlightAware. And we're easy to track. I don't mind giving it. A lot of guys are like, oh, I'm not giving out my tail number over the air. I mean, come on. Everybody can see you, right? So what's the big deal? It's like your call sign. So I give it my tail number and guys look you up and they all have fun. And then, oh yeah, I saw you, and they follow you, and it's kind of fun. I've had lots of guys doing SOTA and POTA. Like I'll be listening on 4652 and there'll be a SOTA or POTA going on. And they're like, what grid are you? Right. And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm kind of here. Right. And then like, oh, you're there. you know, and then they're like, that's kind of funny, right? Because you can tell they're like trying to put it together. And then when they figure out you're an aircraft, they're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And a lot of people get jazzed. It's their first aeronautical mobile contact. And of course, you know, I just write it down in my log. Okay, we go to the next one. Just this is just in here for curiosity. Air stations do not have to be licensed because they're licensed by rule. So the FCC says basically if it's installed in an aircraft and you're a pilot, you don't need a license. You used to need a license, but you don't anymore. And go ahead to the next one. 2 meters is very similar to VHF airband. They're very similar in frequencies. Their propagation characteristics are similar, but airband is all AM. And so unlike FM, when you open the squelch, you hear nothing, right? And you don't hear anything at all when you open the squelch. Aviation VHF is all low power. Even the airliners don't have like 50 watts. They got 10-watt radio. The horizon distance is, if you calculate, it's effectively unlimited. So you're limited by antennas and power, which is kind of interesting environment. It's kind of like being in space. And you can look down into all kinds of cracks and crevices and things because you're up high. And so that has some implications like search and rescue. So if you're like searching for somebody, it helps to have an airplane in the hunt. It's a low noise environment, but if there is any noise anywhere, you will hear it. So if there's somebody who's got a stuck mic, guess what? You're going to hear the stuck mic. Now the stuck mic might be, 150 miles away, and the guy with a handheld's right below. You're going to hear the guy with the handheld, which is fortunate. But you'll hear it, but it's normally a very, very low noise environment. Antennas, just a compromise. Don't count on any gain or anything. Just keep it simple and reliable. That's my view on it. Anyhow, next one. And that's pretty much it. If anybody wants to contact me, there's my email, 2 emails. I'm also on QRZ, so you can look me up, K6FUZ. Any questions before I close? Yes. If anybody is interested in like hamming and flying, contact me. Maybe we'll, if you're a pilot, we can get together. If you want to do that, give me a call. Let me know. You could be. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people say, well, I'm too old to fly and this kind of thing. But one thing I will say, flying is a very cognitive activity. It's kind of like ham radio. There's a social aspect to it too, but there's also a judgment aspect. And I have found by far older people have better judgment. They don't do a lot of silly things that the young people will do, although I've had some fantastic young pilots. I had one young guy in his 20s buy a second or third level airplane, and the guy did his rating in like 2 weeks. He knocked it out of the park. He did a 97 on his written, and he absolutely knocked it out of the park. So any other questions? Oh, yes, please.
Just curious, if you're at 10,000 feet over Sacramento, I was curious what significant peaks you would see on a perfectly clear day.
Okay, so there's the Bay Area VOR, which is Mount Diablo. So basically you pick up out of here, you look that way, and on a clear day, there's Mount Diablo. So there's your navigation device. I mean, Diablo is so big, it is so visible that if you don't have anything obstructing you, like smoke or clouds or any of that sort of stuff, you just look and go, wow, look at that thing. It's huge. It's kind of like, and it's unique, right? It's kind of like Shasta, okay? You see the big ones, right? So.
Did you see Whitney?
Not from here, it's a little too far, but if you kind of go that way a little bit, like you go down the spine in Nevada, or you go down the California side, you'll see Whitney. Oh yeah, but the difference is that Diablo sticks out because it's big where everything is flat, okay? Lassen The Peaks and Lassen stick out because they're big where everything is much lower, but Whitney has a lot of competition. Have I run APRS? And the answer is not yet. It's a great application for APRS. I would love to do it, but you know, like all things, kind of like one thing at a time. I mean, when I first started in ham radio, I'm an electrical engineer by training. Okay, so you can imagine I could go hog wild in this. I said to myself, you get one band, that's it. Don't step out of that band, because otherwise, like, ham radio is this giant black hole you can get into, right? And it can suck you in. And you know, people haul you out like 10 years later and, hey man, where you been? Right? So did you have a question?
And some of you may not know. I'll just not use it. But anyways, I've been flying helicopters for 25 years. I'm now currently grounded due to kidney stones.
Oh, bummer.
But my wife was asking me if my friend Bob should put a 705 in his Bell 47. I said that'd be kind of hard to do. That doesn't have a governor on it. Quite a bit of time to that. We did talk about the 206. When I first heard that, I knew exactly what it was, because I have a lot of time in 206. I have time in 407. So my 407 is my favorite. So I'm going to ask you, do you have time in a 505?
The answer is no time in a 505, but I've had my friends come over many times. So I have a friend who's got a 505, and he comes by all the time. And believe it or not, he calls in, because we monitor the air band at our shack. And he calls in and he goes, "Are you there?" And I go, "Yeah, come on down. Coffee's on," right? And he comes in his Bell 505 of all things. And it's, of course, the 505, for those of you who are not familiar with the Bell product line, the 505 is the current incarnation of the Jet Ranger. It's the inheritor of the line.
Yeah, it's got the blades of a long ranger.
Yeah.
I've never had a chance to fly one, but I definitely want to. But I was talking to my wife, and we'd like to go up in that red area so she can actually see me fly.
Contact me. Contact me. Okay. It's calling time. Did you want to take any more questions, or?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, let's give Phil a round of applause. And I just want to say, besides the cool ham radio aspect and the flying aspect, you know, we make friends with each other, right? You say, "Hi, how you doing?" You see him a few times. I've only, see, when he was flying the first time we heard him that you heard, I didn't talk to him. I don't think I did. And then I asked him one day, "Hey, could you do this?" He said, "Yeah." I think we had 1 or 2 phone calls, a couple of emails. I mean, what hits me is how you can make a friend with very little effort. And then it was amazing. So thank you very much, Phil. Really, really, really good. And this will be, this recording will be up on the SNARS YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Now our meeting is done. And for those that are on Zoom,